Hey everyone. Before we get into this story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. Now, here's one that will grip you. I used to think I was just being playful. That night, surrounded by friends, laughter, and half-empty glasses at Maple Oak, I figured I'd lighten the mood with a joke. I said my dating history probably outnumbered everyone else's combined. People laughed, but it wasn't genuine. Just that awkward chuckle people give when they don't know how to react. Ethan didn't laugh. He just stared, quiet, unreadable, and set down his fork with slow deliberation. I nudged him, teasing him to relax. It was only a joke. Still nothing. The silence stretched until I started rambling, throwing out nervous lines about men being too sensitive. When the check came, he stood, left some cash, and walked out. Everyone at the table froze. I forced a smile and said he just couldn't handle a confident woman. At home, he didn't argue. He didn't ask questions. He calmly packed a small bag. "I'll stay at my mom's for a few days," he said. I told him he was overreacting. He looked at me, voice quiet but firm. "You think it's funny because you're never the one being laughed at." Then he left. The next morning, his coffee mug was gone. His wedding ring sat on the counter. I laughed at first, until I realized my hands were shaking. The house felt hollow, too quiet, too clean. I told myself he'd cool off and come back soon. At work, I turned the story into a sitcom-like anecdote. A few colleagues chuckled, but one woman said her husband would have left too. I waved it off, claiming men these days just can't handle honesty. Deep down, though, something in me twisted. That night, when I called him, his mom texted instead, asking me to stop contacting him until he was ready. That stung. I vented to my mom, who told me not to apologize for having a sense of humor. "He'll come back once he sees how silly he's being," she said. A few days later, I went to the house to grab some papers. Ethan's office door was slightly open, and on the desk was a neat stack of printed emails from a law firm, Grayson and Ford, LLP. My stomach sank. I took a photo, telling myself I was imagining things. That night, I messaged him. "We need to talk." Hours later, he replied, "There's nothing left to discuss." I stared at the words, my phone going dark, realizing he might really mean it. A week passed. A mutual friend invited both of us to her birthday dinner. I went, sure he wouldn't make a scene. When he arrived, calm and composed, a strange pride bubbled in me. I could still provoke him. The conversation turned light, and I couldn't resist. I made another joke about having more experience than anyone else there. Silence, not a laugh. Ethan looked at me quietly. That explains a lot. My smile faltered. I accused him of trying to embarrass me. He said softly, "You do that well enough on your own." Then he reached into his jacket, placed an envelope beside my plate, and said, "You like attention? Here's something worth talking about." He left without another word. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Divorce papers. Dated 2 weeks before that first dinner. He'd already decided, even before my joke. Everyone around us pretended not to notice. I forced a smile and muttered that he'd calm down eventually. Driving home, I realized he wasn't coming back. When I tried to laugh later, it sounded wrong. Strained, fake, nothing like me. After that night, I couldn't stop replaying it. He had been waiting, papers printed, patient, and all I'd done was give him an excuse. I sent him long messages about love, misunderstandings, how jokes could hurt but didn't mean anything. reply. One afternoon, I returned to the house to collect some things. Ethan's study door was locked, but I knew where the spare key was. Inside, everything was unnervingly tidy. Folders lined up perfectly, each labeled in his precise handwriting. Finances, messages, custody. I opened one folder and froze. Screenshots of my social media posts, texts, old messages about my wild days before marriage. Another folder held receipts and bank transfers marked in red. Misuse of shared funds. Each page was a quiet accusation. I sat in his chair, whispering to the empty room that he'd gone too far. Flipping through more folders, I realized this hadn't been sudden. He had been documenting everything for months, building a case, while I thought we were just having arguments. When he came home later, I confronted him. Calm as ever, he told me to lock up when I was done. "You're the one who did this," he said, then went upstairs, as if nothing had shattered. 2 weeks later, we sat across from each other at mediation. I wore a navy dress, hoping to appear composed. Ethan sat there with his lawyer, rested and serene. I smiled, expecting recognition. None came. I started, explaining that everything had been blown out of proportion, that my joke had landed badly, but he had turned humor into punishment. His lawyer opened a folder, printed screenshots, statements, old messages from years ago. My stomach twisted. I said it didn't mean anything. The lawyer replied, "It shows a pattern of public disrespect." Ethan stayed silent the whole time. When asked if he had anything to say, he quietly stated, "I'm only here for closure." I tried to argue, saying men like him couldn't handle confident women, that I had never cheated. The mediator looked at me gently. "No one said you did." Somehow that cut deeper than anything else. When the summary was read, it was final. Property and custody awarded to Ethan. Immediate separation. My throat tightened. I looked at him for mercy, but he only nodded, thanked the mediator, and turned to me. "You wanted everyone to laugh," he said. "Now they have their ending." Then he left. Returning home, the house felt hollow. His belongings gone, drawers emptied, closets half open, his scent fading. On the kitchen table, a thick envelope with my name sat. Inside were the final papers, stamped, neat, no note, no emotion, just the end of us. I called my mom. She said she was sorry, but maybe this time I'd gone too far. I told her it was honesty, that humor shouldn't destroy a marriage. She countered, saying it wasn't humor. It was cruelty pretending to be. I hung up before she could continue. For days, I wandered the quiet house, touching remnants he'd left. A chipped mug, a single sock, our child's old drawing still pinned to the fridge. The silence hurt more than any argument ever had. "It was just a joke," I whispered, as if saying it again could rewrite reality. But the room stayed still. That night, sitting in his chair, staring at the empty spot where his computer used to be, I thought about how calm he had been, how certain. He hadn't tried to destroy me. He had waited, patient and silent, while I did it myself, one careless word at a time. I laughed once, weak, hollow. I told myself he'd regret it, that he'd miss me. Deep down, I knew he had stopped hearing my voice long before he walked out the door.